Good night. Good night. Um, Alternate views. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Kimar Stewart, and welcome this evening to Alternate Views. Just let me know if you can hear me well, if you can see me well, and let us get deep into conversation this evening. So, sorry, as we've had some viewers who are tuned on from quite early. And so I want to say good evening to you all. The numbers are climbing quickly. Gal Biz, who was the first person at 10 minutes to 6, she was on. So thank you, Gal Biz, for tuning on so early. Uh, Victoria's Queen, hi to you. She was on at 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes to 7. Ramim, good evening, Ramim. Good evening, R9 Sustainability Alliance Foundation. Joseph, how are you? Stacey be coming on to the show this evening. I welcome back, sir. Just let me know when you are ready. I'll have the link over to you that you could be able to sign on to Alternate Views this evening. Marcia, good evening. Owen Hines, locked on from Philadelphia. Good evening to you. Good evening, Wayne Austin, Sir Alfred Benjamin. Welcome, sir. Tony Paris. Hi, Tony. How are you doing? Tyrone Green. Good to meet you, Tyrone. Pauline Maynard. Hello. Andy Bajan. How are you, sir? So welcome this evening, Alternate Views. I am your host, Kimar Stewart, and I'll be discussing with you this evening the IMF and Barbados. We started last week, actually, researching some vital information about Barbados and its relationship with the International Monetary Fund, and in particularly the loans, right? The loans aspect. But I don't wish to go over the loan aspect but I just wanted to uh, do a quick recap. So you guys could tell me what you remember from last week, and we'll do a brief run up until we lead right into the matter as to understanding uh, the status that the IMF is reporting right now on the Barbados economy. So, good evening to you all once more, and thank you all as always for tuning in to Alternate Views. So far, we're up at 88 persons. So, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm just trying to ready the presentation that we just roll right in, and in the meantime, I want you guys to tell me what do you remember from last week. What was outstanding in terms of the conversation? Um, any questions you might have asked last week that weren't answered for you. Um, hoping that you can tune in this evening to Alternate Views and let's get this ball rolling. So far we're up at 93 persons, and I want to encourage you all to keep signing in. As usual, we will start this evening with a quote from Alternate Views, the book, Barbados' Economic Road to Republic. So much has happened throughout since Alternate Views was published in February 2022, just after the last general election. And those persons who would have bought a copy of Alternate Views and read it, I'm still listening for your feedback, because you were to engage me. I know I've been getting some good engagement from persons. I don't want to call the names online, but I've been getting some good engagement on the book, and I want to have it done on the show. I don't just want to discuss it with you in private. I want some of you to come online and raise queries and comments from the book, and always relate it back to the know. What's happening now? What do you want understanding of in the know? So you can save your questions from activities happening in the week. And I am here to answer them on Thursdays, alternate views. I'm not just here to be, speaking all the time and expressing. I'm here to hear from you, the people of Barbados, and not just the people of Barbados, but the region and internationally, because we do have a large international audience on alternate views. So, chapter 4 of alternate views. Page 71. And we start. The International Monetary Fund. As the country progressed into the implementation of this IMF-supported work plan, many economists marveled at the extremely good news being highlighted in print media. The economic management of the Barbados economy seemingly had been transferred from the Ministry of Finance onto IMF employee Dr. Kevin Greenwich, as he was most vocal on all matters related to the Barbados economy. Now, since Alternate Views was published, some developments would have taken place within the economic space. And those developments are the former IMF consultant, Dr. Kevin Greenwich. He seemingly left Barbados for a short while, and then he returned to Barbados, no longer as an IMF consultant, but he returned to Barbados as the governor of the Central Bank of Barbados. Right? But before Dr. Greenwich had taken over the role at the Central Bank, he was the most vocal person on the good, or the supposedly good, economic news that was printed in our newspapers. So you will see newspapers will be speaking about growth and buoyant economy, and we saw the good praises put out there by Dr. Greenwich. Now, some persons would ask, but is it a conflict of interest, just being senior technical advisor to the government on behalf of the IMF and now taking over the role of the central bank, if that wouldn't be a conflict of interest? Well, that's a very important and it's a very good observation to make, because some persons would wonder, well, the IMF usually has its set restrictions as to how they would proceed and how they would enact programs on countries, and usually the employees will have to follow suit. And persons around the world accuse the IMF of destabilizing countries with their policies. So there's a deep fear within Caribbean economies, not just Caribbean economies, but African economies, economies all over the world. There's a deep fear as it relates to the International Monetary Fund. But Barbados, the policies of the day were that the former senior technical advisor would have been given the role of the governor of the central bank. Now, I wrote an article in the Nation newspaper, and I congratulated the governor on receiving. You can hear music. I don't think I was playing any music. Let me try to. Right. That should be fine now. As I was saying, sorry. I congratulated the governor for receiving the role. However, I raised some interesting observations, i.e., where would the loyalties of the governor lie? With the International Monetary Fund or with the government of Barbados? Now, I often query, and I know also that a person would always query. Just give me 1 second because uh right. Just give me 1 second because you're saying you're hearing music, but you don't have any music playing. So right, tell me if you can hear me well now because I don't know music is playing. Yes, right. So that should be cleared now. Oh yes. Right, so that should be cleared now. So as I was saying, the governor of the central bank, I often, and this was by his admission that the devaluation of currencies is always on the table as a measure in all IMF negotiations with countries who enter into IMF programs. All. And so I raised the question as governor of the central bank, um, what philosophy would he adopt? Does he continue the philosophy of believing? eh, Does he continue the philosophy of believing what the IMF believes as and the IMF has recommended currency devaluation for Barbados countless times. It is record in fact. So does he believe that, or does he believe in a continued and sustained currency peg of a $2 to $1 for Barbados? So these type of questions were raised, and these type of questions were valid as it relates to the former senior technical advisor for the IMF taking on the role of governor of the central bank. Now, let me just issue a disclaimer and say that the IMF is also a broad learning institution. Is the premier institution that most economists around the world would aim to work at, because most countries in the world are actually indebted to the fund. And uh, when you go and you learn the different ways, and I could explain it to you because I studied a course at one of the IMF institutes, and the name of that course was Public Sector Debt Statistics. And in public sector debt statistics is how I found out really how the government was able to uh, I use the word inflate debt numbers and the debt to GDP levels um, in 2018 when the government changed, right? And I'm going to further explain to you as well, based off the rhetoric of the uh, prime minister, the minister of finance, and one or two of the senior ministers who said that the debt of Barbados was $18.1 billion in the year of the debt restructuring. They said that the debt was $18.1 billion in the year of debt restructuring. Now, that is absolutely incorrect. It is false, and there's no documentation to substantiate that figure that was expressed by the political figures of the governing political administration. The reports, and again, this is where persons were asking about the conflict of interest that Dr. Greenwich would have as the former IMF employee and being the governing central bank and aligning with country Barbados's philosophy. All of the reports for the Central Bank of Barbados, prepared by the former governor of the central bank, Cleviston Haynes, and Delel Worrell, at no point of record was the debt of Barbados Barbados ever $18 billion in none of the central bank reports. And I read all of them. It was never $18 billion in 2018. There's no record to prove it, no central bank report. Where the challenge came in is that after Dr. Greenwich assumed the role of governor of the central bank, when he published his first report, when you reference the numbers, then the number of 18 billion magically appears for the year 2018. But for the previous reports that were published, that are public documents that anybody can get from anywhere, all of them never referenced $18 billion. But the one that the last governor of the central bank produced is saying $18 billion. So you have a big contradiction in what the central bank is reporting as to what were the original debt figures for Barbados in the year of the debt restructuring, which was 2018. So there exists the conflict that people queried in the initial stages. Right? So I made the point earlier about being able to inflate debt numbers. The IMF's prescription for debt towards Barbados at the time was to include state-owned enterprise arrears, all government guarantees, and all other types of government spending that were not recorded debts previously. The IMF prescription was to record them as debts. Right? So the figures ended up increasing because they changed the way debt, or the definition of what you consider to be debt, and added additional definitions, and therefore, based off the IMF's prescription, the debt numbers increased. Right? So on one hand, you have the IMF reporting one set of figures, and then on the other hand, you have the governor and the central bank reporting another set of figures. Right? I was also interested about Barbados's IMF experience is that the government has been reporting that they have been meeting all of the IMF targets. They have been meeting all the IMF targets. And the IMF also has been saying that the Barbados government has been meeting the targets as well. However, when you read the report, the IMF report, the country report on Barbados, which was published in December of 2023, clearly articulates that the government has not been meeting a lot of the IMF targets. They've been meeting some, but they have been delaying critical reforms that they promised the IMF since 2018. Hence the reason we had to sign on to a second IMF program in December 2022, which is called the RST, or the Resilience and Sustainability Fund, because we did not complete the first program. Hence the reason to sign on to another program, as it is a rare fact that countries sign on to quick IMF programs in succession. If you check the record, no country in the world has defaulted on its foreign debts, entered in the IMF program, further two IMF programs, and has not had a devaluation. I'll say that again. There's no country in the world, let's put in layman terms, countries in the world hardly survive the IMF. They hardly. So Realistically, no country in the world defaulted on their foreign debts, entered into an IMF program, entered into two IMF programs, and has not had a currency devaluation. It is flat. Right? So Barbados is facing a situation where the foreign reserves that we have and the money that we've been using to buy oil and buy for the merchants to go and buy goods and import goods for resale, that money is being borrowed from the IMF, that money is being borrowed from the IDB, and that money is being borrowed from the Chinese. That money is being borrowed from the European Investment Bank because we're not earning foreign exchange. Eh, I can say that again. We're not earning foreign exchange. So the foreign income that Barbados is experiencing right now, that foreign income, which is money in we pocket, the money in we pocket that coming from overseas, the foreign exchange that is coming to Barbados is coming from borrowing, IMF borrowing, IDB borrowing, CDB borrowing, European Investment Bank borrowing, Chinese borrowing, World Bank borrowing. And I showed you last week the debt levels per institution that Barbados has to repay. So let's use a simple explanation. If these institutions decide to pull back financing, which they're not, because the more money we borrow, the better for them. But if they decide to pull back financing, right, where will Barbados earn the money from to run the country? Where will we buy oil from? Or where would you have the foreign exchange? Where will we get the foreign exchange to buy oil from? The commercial banks not gonna lend us. We don't have it, right? So you see the problem that Barbados has. So for Barbados to get out of this trap of borrowing, we have to earn the foreign exchange to reduce foreign borrowing. Tourism is our biggest foreign exchange earner. The international business sector, which is crumbling. The government is trying to think we're trying to export some services, but realistically, the hole is still there. We have a $1 billion. We have $1 billion on our foreign exchange account. Our current account deficit is at $1 billion. So we have a hole of $1 billion in foreign exchange on our books right now. And that hole has to be filled, right? But where do we get the earnings from to fill that hole? We don't earn enough foreign exchange, so we have to go and borrow close to $1 billion in foreign exchange to fill the current account deficit, the foreign exchange deficit. So you're seeing how drastic the problem that Barbados has and the complexities of it and the role that the IMF is playing on it as the sole institution that is the anchor of Barbados right now, right? So the IMF continuously reports on Barbados, gives updates, and these updates are often contrary to what the Barbados policymakers usually say. So the news that is fed to the population is not the news that the IMF reports. And when you decipher the facts, right, and persons like Anthony Wood and Justin Robinson and other economists, Rashid Griffith and the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute, even Stewart and Perkins Caribbean Um, we have been putting the economic facts to the public. Um, However, being a politically exposed person, you know, most of the facts get drowned in the political conversation, but the facts still exist. The economic realities of the country still exist. Right? So basically, what I'm going to move on to now is the report on Barbados. What is the International Monetary Fund saying about the government of Barbados? What is the International Monetary? We're at 7:30 now, and we're seeing 200, say 228 persons. So we're going very well so far. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Not saying the comment, yes. So good night to you all. Good night, St. Chaz. Good night, Clayton Vaughn, Zaire Campbell, Esther Blue, Diana Husbands. Uh, welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in once more. So how hardly anyone survived the IMF. What is the Barbados PM doing like, to the people? But that's interesting. So yes, I hope you guys are following me so far. Um, if you have any questions, be sure to stop me. Let me explain. But what I'm about to show you now is what you came here for. Basically, that is the what the MF is saying about Barbados. Right? Ah, there you have it. Trevor Stewart. Yes, everyone, please like and share, like and share. I'm sure this information is very valuable to you. So do not hold back that information from the others. Share it broad, share well. Yes, I am going to get to the Argentinian experience. Thanks for reminding me. That's reminding me, but we still have a lot to discuss with at home, you know, Barbados. We're trying to focus on the country to give the people out there the information, the facts, the realities, not the political stuff, but the facts and the realities of where we're at as a people, where we're at as a country, right? We're investors who could watch the show and look on, um, CEOs of banks, you know, people who sanitation worker, anybody who could sit and observe this information and be able to decipher for themselves what their future is going to be like based off the facts of where Barbados is at as a country, not what is being sold to the public. Right? So we're going to get to Argentina because we want to understand what happened there so that we could avoid that pitfall. But we need to understand completely what's happening here at home before we try to understand what happened in Argentina. Right. So what I have on the screen here is basically the IMF report, country report on Barbados. I know you can see it well. So this country report on Barbados International Monetary Fund was published in December 2023, and I briefly went through it last week. So you might hear some stuff that sounds familiar. Now, Barbados's 2023 Article 4 consultation and second review under the Extended Funds Facility Arrangement and arrangement under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility press release, staff report, and statement by the Executive Director for Barbados. In the context of the staff report for the 2003 Article 4 consultation and second reviews under the Extended Fund Facility Arrangement and under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility, the following documents have been released and are included in this package. A press release including a statement by the chair of the executive board, The staff report prepared by a team of the IMF for the Executive Board's consideration on December 18th, 2023, following discussions on November 13th, 2023, with officials of Barbados on economic developments and policies. Based on information available at the time of these discussions, the staff report was completed on December 4th, 2023, and it also includes a World Bank assessment letter for the Resilience and Sustainability Fund. And it says a statement by the executive director, and it says that the IMF's transparency policy allows for the deletion of market sensitive information and premature disclosures of the authority's policy intentions in published staff reports and other documents. So, in other words, the IMF is saying to you that if the government has sensitive information that they don't want to put out there, the IMF reserves the right not to publish it in their article for consultation on Barbados. Not my words. These are not my words. I just quoted what was right here directly from the IMF's mouth. All right, so and moving on, like I explained to you earlier, the Barbados is under two different IMF facilities. The Extended Fund Facility and the Resilience and Sustainability Facility. Right? This is unheard of in the world. Right? So this is the statement now by the acting chair of the IMF, saying that Barbados is advancing its implementation of its homegrown economic and recovery and transformation work plan and its ambitious climate policy agenda supported by the EFF and the RSF arrangements. After successfully weathering a shock in recent years, i.e., COVID, the Barbados economy has recovered strongly amid a rebound in tourism. The fiscal balance has strengthened and the public debt to GDP ratio is declining. International reserves, foreign reserves, have risen, and inflation is moderating by lower fuel prices and freight costs, and unemployment has fallen. Now, you, the people who live and work in Barbados, you could say, you ask yourselves, do you see inflation being lowered in Barbados? Do you see prices reducing on fuel for freight? If you were unemployed, do you have a job? No, because they say unemployment is falling. So I trying to ask the legit questions. If you were unemployed, do you have a job now? How is the job market going? Because these are facts that the IMF are reporting on the Barbados economy. And it says that the authorities focus on reducing debt through higher primary surpluses while maintaining adequate social and capital expenditure appropriate. Right? So we can observe realistically that some level of capital works have been happening. So we had the whole project, capital work project. We had the Mill and Pave program. Um, those are capital works projects. We had the Sam Lars Castle capital works projects. So there have been some level of capital works projects. I know there were some welfare programs, the One Family program, and so there was some level of spending in the Barbados economy, right? We can observe that. We all can observe that as a fact, right? So that spending, so to the IMF, did not impact on the government's ability to start paying down some debts. So many persons may not know, but the government of Barbados has actually started to repay some of the foreign debts. right? They actually started to repay some of the foreign debts that we borrowed. A lot of the IMF monies have been, they guarantee their money. So the level of default on the IMF is very low, right? So I want to move on to some figures here. Right. So where I am at is the executive summary of what is being said about Barbados as a country, right? What is saying about Barbados as a country in their executive summary, right? They're saying about Barbados, this is the IMF, that the authorities, which is the government, are implementing the BERT Plan 2022. Remember, you have BERT 1 and now we have BERT 2. And their climate policy agenda ambitious. Barbados has weathered COVID and other recent shocks amid continued macroeconomic stability. Economy has recovered strongly, whatever. The same thing that was said earlier. Sustainable growth, debt, social capital spending, ample reserves. Yeah. So what is being recommended in terms of policy? It says here that it is important to continue strengthening the primary balance of government while maintaining adequate social and capital spending. That's basically saying that they're going to continue to cut expenditure and keep the level of taxation high. So there ain't a tax reduction in sight. That's what that is saying to you. Right? That's what that is saying to you. So government will continue to tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend, because that's basically the loop. So you got a tax to earn a certain level of revenues. So that is what the MF is saying. Continue strengthening the primary balance over the medium term. So taxation is likely to go up next year. As the Prime Minister said, current taxes will be increased. So to strengthen the primary balance, as what the MF is saying here, and in admission of the Prime Minister, they are going to increase current levels of taxation so that they can continue the social and capital spending they claim that they are on. So if they could get the whole project up and going, that is a way to do social spending. If they could get the seaweed machine back up and running, that is a way to do social spending and capital spending. If they could get the Hyatt to go up, that is spending. If they could get all those hotels that were promised to us up, that level of development that you want to see in Barbados, proper roads and you know proper health care, proper education systems. From here on out, that level of, I would say, comfort will only be afforded to us as a people, and according to the IMF and the Prime Minister, by increasing the current levels of some of the taxes that we have right now. That's what they're saying to us, that to enjoy proper services, that they would have to increase the current levels of taxation on us to keep maintaining the social and capital spending. Right? They haven't said which taxes they want to increase, but there has been an admission that some will go up. So in further recommendations, policy recommendations, this is what's being recommended. It says here that the steady implementation of structural reforms anchored by strong governance frameworks, including revenue administration, so BRAD, proper tax collection, VAT office, public financial management, procurement, state-owned enterprises, and the pension system, national insurance, is key to generating savings and efficiency gains to gradually raise and sustain higher primary surpluses. So I explained it to you, so I'm not going to explain it to you again. For the government to get savings, they got to spend some money and make profit. But where, and I don't know, you could tell me, what institutions do the government of Barbados have on the books right now that are profitable entities, that can make the government of Barbados the revenue that they're required to be able to implement this continued IMF program? They're doing well. The airport is one of them, but look at what is happening. They're leasing the airport for 30 years, right? They're leasing the airport for 30 years. So the more commercials they own enterprises that we have on the books, the ones that can make us some money, like the airport and the seaport, the ones that can make us some money, they're leasing them out. And to earn the increased revenues and the fancy language primary surplus and reduce the fiscal deficit, you are going to take the revenues that you want to further the government's agenda from the current and existing taxation levels on the people and increase them to be able to get that revenue, as opposed to using the state-owned enterprises which are not profitable by the way right now to be able to generate the revenues needed to carry out the government's agenda. We all know when the government is applying taxation, it's not fair. So they're not going to tax the corporate tax structure to do it. They're not going to tax capital, tax capital gains, tax profits. They're not going to do that, you know. They're not going to tax big business to be able to finance. They're not going to tax big business to be able to finance the proposed capital spending that the government wants to do. Instead, they're going to tax the people and cut state-owned enterprises off the books to be able to capture that revenue. So you see the state that the country is in as it relates to the IMF program and Barbados. So it says here, and this program, this IMF program is heavily influenced by the word climate change. So Barbados is becoming a climate champion in the world as it relates to the implementation of the IMF program. So the IMF program is funding all of the infrastructure for the new climate agenda. And it says here, efforts to build resilient climate change, green the economy, and mobilize private climate finance should be sustained. So the only source of revenue, according to the government, i.e. foreign exchange, they're looking to get it from climate projects, climate related projects, because the wave of climate change is the global wave right now where all the billions and trillions of dollars of financing exists. So that is why Barbados is pushing itself to compete on the international world, and we seem to be developing. We developed the very strong initiative, and we developed some other climate friendly initiatives because we are grasping at international financing and foreign exchange. And the world wave happening right now, the world wave happening right now, it's happening in climate change. So that is why Barbados is receiving a lot of these millions in the name of climate change. And we're receiving these millions to be able to implement the climate change agenda. So Barbados is speedily, according to the IMF documentation, implementing the climate friendly infrastructure across the Barbados economy. Okay. And that yet is another reason for signing a new IMF program to continue this implementation of the climate agenda. Part of the, part of the larger reason, and we're going to get to that a little later, for implementing the climate infrastructure and the institution that's going to be used to implement this climate agenda is the Barbados Water Authority. So that is clearly why the Prime Minister in the last cabinet reshuffle, or not reshuffle, but change or whatever, took over the Ministry of Water Resources, Barbados Water Authority, because majority of the climate financing that Barbados received on the international scale, the conduit to transfer that financing to the international world to Barbados is through the Barbados Water Authority. Right? So that is what you're saying about the Joby Water and the water reclamation project and water this and water that and hurricane this and hurricane that, because the government received billions in climate financing to implement the climate agenda and to tackle these issues associated with climate change in Barbados. And one of the largest capital works projects that Barbados is set to embark on under this new IMF program is the water reclamation project to change the South Coast sewage plant into a tertiary level sewage plant where we'll be reclaiming sewage water, cleaning it, and putting it back into the clean water drinking aquifers of Barbados. And we heard that on the IMS platform when the minister in the Ministry of Finance of Barbados said that Barbados was entering into the debt financial swap to be able to finance a tertiary level sewage treatment plant. That is why Mr. Strong was speaking to the IMS forum and saying that this is what Barbados intends to do, because it is included right here in the IMF program that Barbados has volunteered and signed on to the Resilience and Sustainability Fund through the IMF to access climate financing. And part of that climate financing is to upgrade your water plant to a tertiary level water plant, and the financing becomes available for it. And Barbados agreed to do it, and that is the reason the Minister in the Ministry of Finance of Barbados was speaking to that. So, and moving past that, it says here, that program performance under the EFF and the RSF remains strong, and all quantitative performance criteria have been met for this review. The structural benchmarks to create a fiscal risk unit within the Ministry of Finance complete a stock taking of the financial performance of all government entities, the own enterprises, establish a GovTech, and review the central bank's monetary policy toolkit have been implemented. So they're going to review their policy with the former IMF employee and now governor of the central bank, Dr. Greenidge. They're going to review the central bank's monetary policy toolkit as part of the thing. So with Dr. Greenidge being there, it would give the IMF a level of confidence in working with him as a former employee, because he agrees with the program, having been one of the original brains behind the program and its implementation. So it says here, all reform measures for the RSF review have been completed, including the inclusion of a fiscal restatement discussing climate change risks in the financial year 2023-24 budget, improve the regulations to enhance the efficiency and the effectiveness of public procurement, as government contracts, and the development of a sustainable green public procurement framework and guidelines for the implementation of the green climate budget title. So there's going to be an entire budget set aside to focus on climate issues, green issues. You see it there, sustainable and green and public procurement framework. So all of these green and climate projects are going to be set up, right? Are going to be set up, and they're going to have specific rules governing as to how the government will roll out these things in their budget, as was described. So I look forward to seeing how these climate related projects and developing a climate budget will aid Barbados in the journey to carrying out this agreed IMF program. So it says here that the submission to Parliament of a comprehensive national disaster risk management policy, again more climate, and the closing of remaining regulatory gaps in energy storage and extension of the tax holiday for electric vehicles, and to promote investment in renewable energy projects and accelerate the transition to renewable energy sources. Again, more climate change. So you're saying that more and more of Barbados's time and policy is going towards the climate agenda in association with the Resilience and Sustainability Fund that Barbados signed onto. So it says here that the mission team of the IMF met with Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Mia Motley, Central Bank Governor Dr. Cameron Greenwich, Minister in the Ministry Ryan Strong, and other government officials. Okay. So I am scrolling up. Okay, and scrolling up to where we are going to go next so that you can see. I'm going to show as well some of what is going on here, because a lot of reforms are going to come to the Barbados Revenue Authority. But we're going to do that on a separate show because that is a lot of information uh, to speak to and speak about. There's something specifically that I am looking for to show you here, people. But thank you again for tuning on. Loving the engagement so far. I hope that you are keeping up with the information. Um, we are trying to keep it very simple, but educational at the same time, because somebody has to hold our hand and walk us through these mazes. Um, because we are all Barbadians and we are proud and we want our country to do well. Right. So, state-owned enterprise reform of government. So it says here at number 15, gonna zoom in, right? That cabinet approved the amalgamation of the Rural Development Corporation and the Urban Development Corporation, or UDC and RDC, both of which were under the office of the Prime Minister. And the authorities are working on reforming the operations of the National Housing Corporation. As you know, we had a lot of issues with the NHC, and the Barbados Agricultural Marketing Corporation, BAMC, with the cabinet expected to consider the reform plans by December 2023. And you all know that the BAMC was sold off as part of the energy co-op, with the plan to transition it over to renewable energy. We know about that, and we know about what's happening at the NDC and the development of the Hope Inc. So these steps will promote efficiency gains and better service delivery and reduce risk to government finances. The authorities completed a stock taking of financial SOE financial performance, end of June 2023 structural benchmark, which showed improvement in the financial position relative to recent years of its state-owned enterprises, while also indicating that several entities remain structurally unprofitable. These are government offices and stuff we're talking about here. So going forward, the authorities intend to continue updating, modernizing, restructuring, privatizing, whatever you want to call it, including by privatizing certain activities, ensuring adequate user fee structures, and eliminating inefficiencies through rationalizations and mergers where possible. So we are all geniuses on here. So we know what privatizing means. Like, we are all geniuses on here. So we know what privatizing means. Right? We all know what ensuring adequate user fee structures mean. That means that when I go to the hospital, I gotta pay user fees. Right? We already paying user fees through the garbage, so it starts for garbage collection. Right? So most of the government services are going to be structured in the way that we have to pay user fees. That is what's being said here. I'm privatizing certain entities. And I bet top dollar that one of those entities is the Barbados Water Authority that they'll be privatizing. Hence why the Prime Minister took it over. Right? So this is the more technical stuff. So it says here, that the BERT 22 plan envisages renewed efforts to reform the SOE sector. A financial health dashboard for SOEs developed under the 2018 to 2022 EFF provides authorities with a mechanism to analyze the performance of priority state-owned enterprises and elaborate targeted reform measures to reduce government dependence. So that simply means, realistically, that they are trying to take most of the state-owned enterprises off government, right? So think about it. If the government did not have, to pay out 300 and some $1 million every year to run the hospital, but the hospital can make its own money and run on its own, the government will love that. So the climate agenda is saying, and the RST is about, and the report on Barbados is saying that the government intends to take priority SOEs and reduce the level of government dependence these institutions will have. Where the hospital does make money from other than depending on the government purse? That's why we pay taxes. So if you attempt to take the hospital off government books, that means that Barbadians will have to pay for healthcare, and healthcare will be completely privatized, or you shut down the hospital and privatize the whole thing, or you shut down majority of the services of the hospitals and just do things. You privatize the Barbados Water Authority, right, and take it off government books and charge the people the full price for water. Because as far back as 2007, the IMF has been saying in recommendation reports like this that the government of Barbados needs to look at the fee structure of public utilities in Barbados, i.e. water, and make an automatic adjustment upward, carry up the price of water and utilities to reduce the level of government subvention that they were getting. And this was in 2007 that the IMF was saying this to Barbados. So think about it now that we are so heavily invested in the Climate Resilient Sustainability Fund and the IMF program and the focus on water, and IMF has been saying. Now that we are fully in the grasp of the IMF, the philosophy of increasing public utilities and the prices upward to reduce the level of government finances is highly possible, right? It is highly possible. So, in continuing on, it says here, in addition, several positive policy changes have been admitted, most notably by the requirement that borrowing by state-owned enterprises must be approved by the Memorandum of Financial and Economic Policies. Oh, sorry, that is the Minister of Finance, Economic Affairs, and Investment. So, even if you're running a state-owned enterprise, any of them, all future borrowings must be approved by the Minister of Finance. So you can't borrow your own money to run your own institution. The Minister of Finance, according to this documentation, has the power now to approve all loans for state-owned enterprises. All of them must be approved by the Minister of Finance before approval. Right? And it says that ongoing transformation of the state-owned enterprise sector will require a sustained policy effort over the medium term, which means that they got to keep it going for a good more years, 5, 10 years. They got to keep it going. So you hear the Prime Minister, so the taxes is going to be increased. So look for them when they get put in, then you got to keep that effort going. Then you got to increase them again, and then you got to keep that effort going. So that is what's being said here. Right? So it says here that modernization of these government entities will continue to be undertaken by a case-by-case basis. So it says here, divest purely commercial activities to the private sector and labor. Look, it's right here, people. Divest purely commercial activities to the private sector and labor. Reduce public subsidies through user fees where appropriate. Improve public service delivery through worker enfranchisement, and reduce subsidies. Achieve efficiency gains. Our policy should target the largest SOEs that drive the performance of the overall sector, as more broadly enforce the expectation that commercial entities will be financially viable without government subsidies. There you have it, people. I can go through that one because the implications of that statement on the landscape of Barbadians is really severe. So it says here, they, on a case-by-case basis, they are going to sit and target the largest SOEs. So let me look at what the larger ones, the hospital, right? The University of the West Indies. I'm going to call that SOE, but that receives government thing. But University of the West Indies, Barbados Water Authority, the Grantlianos International Airport, right? So the largest of government assets, they are going to divest to the private sector and reduce the level of government money, taxpayer money, that are used to finance them and allow the private sector to turn it into profit entities. So in order to get profit, you got to charge prices that will make you profit. And who are the consumers of these? Who are the people who go into these entities? Barbadian taxpayers. So what sense does it make that you're going to take the most profitable entities that we have as a country, give them over to the private sector to run them, and then we can tax the people wages who work in these things to collect revenues, when the government could have been trying to make them efficient as government entities, earn the profits, and let us keep those profits, as opposed to selling off all the government assets, right? I guess every economist or every financially trained person will have different policy prescriptions to different policy issues, right? So that is what is happening right now. And you can see it right here. I put it right there on the screen so you are following exactly what I'm saying. Divest the purely commercial SOEs to the private sector and labor and reduce subsidies through user fees. So when you charge fees, the level of fees you charge, you cut the government transfer by or the government subsidy by. But who have to pay the fees? The Barbadians, the people who live in this country who have to pay the taxes. We. So why would you hang us out to go and pay taxes, right? As opposed to sit back as a government, restructure the entities, stop the corruption, and put people in place, invest in the government entities, and grow them to profit. If you grow them to profits, that means you get more jobs. That means you drive economic activity, and you turn government entities into profit entities, and the country is better off. We can build more roads. You can fix the hospital. You can build proper houses. You could buy a pension plan. You could invest in fortress or stock market, Bitcoin. So you could do something with that money, right? So that's just an idea. But I don't want to get too cozy with the solutions because So in continuing what I am saying here, and I hope you guys are in tune. But let me slow down a bit to take uh, some of what you are saying. Let me read some of the comments. So far, we're up at 353 persons. So I thank you guys for tuning in, having a good conversation so far. Uh, yes, hi, Square 4. Simone Daniel says it's an economic war, and transitioning economies must not industrialize but remain subservient to the advanced economies and their loans. Interesting observation. Somebody said it's already privatized, just waiting for full more legalities, climate related Ponzi scheme. Mervyn Marius. Good evening, Mervyn. The attempt to privatize water in LA and South America failed. Can't dig your own water. And it would charge. Sean Cool, good night, Sean Cool. Good night to you, Tyrone Nurse. Good night to all of my St. John people, Tyrone and Ramel. Good night to Oswald Newton. Hope Oswald gets well soon. We wish Oswald all of the best. Some Peter King is saying how did Barbados get into this state? All because of a misfit on way Hardier's inferiority complex and want to be famous worldwide. Thief called Big Bird. Whoa. He's saying this is why the BWA start reading meters monthly and is using a projector interim bill. It is water, food, and our land they're coming for. Let them run with their friends on services that people choose to purchase, not depend on to live. Sean saying can't dig your own water well. Garbage and sewage tax could make waterworks financially independent and a viable commercial entity. Somebody saying Tyranner's motto is own nothing and be happy. So you ain't far off. If you were paying 80 per month tax inclusive, you are now paying close to 150 because the projections are like 120%. So we're literally advancing money to the Barbados Water Authority. Right. Good night to you, Annette Wood. Queen McQueen's private medical bills are too high in BIM. How much poor people can afford 700 plus when their children are child sick? That is very true. So that's the point I was making about private medical care. Um, the IMS recommendations seem to be to more to privatize the Barbados economy, get government to get out the market, and allow private entities to take over and to turn them into profit-oriented entities. Who expanded the airport? Who is responsible for all that construction going on at Paragon? I don't know what is happening at Paragon. Maybe you need to explain to me what is happening at Paragon. Yes, so I read a few comments in from the people. So thank you guys for contributing. Um, yes. So let me flow through here. This is the national insurance reform they're speaking about, but I don't want to touch this because this is a long topic in itself. So we will deal with that later. I want to yes. So it says here that the authorities, i.e., the government, is seeking to gradually restart domestic capital markets. You guys will know that locally the government borrows or borrowed locally, but our debt profile has been changing since the change of government, and we've more been borrowing internationally as opposed to locally. So, with that change in dynamic and the debt restructuring, where the government of Barbados restructured treasury bills, making Barbados the approximately the third or the fourth country in the world to ever restructure treasury bills, completely destroying the market. So therefore, the central bank, who had over $1 billion in treasury bills, they were robbed. The central bank was robbed of $1 billion. The government still owes the central bank that money, and they have to repay. That was part of the first IMF program, and the government did not meet that target to recapitalize the Central Bank of Barbados the $1.6 billion that it lost in the restructuring. It was included in all of the IMF programs that the government of Barbados agreed to replenish the Central Bank of Barbados with $1.6 billion lost in the restructuring, and they didn't. So that was one of the failed targets in the IMF program. Okay. So the government is seeking to get people to borrow to lend them money locally. So they try with the Boss program, and then they try with the Boss Plus program, and then the central bank again is trying to issue bonds, hoping to get local credit unions and other investors locally because Barbados has billions of dollars of savings in the commercial bank earning 0.01 interest. So the government is trying to offer incentives for locals to take up their monies and to buy government paper. It says here, and moving on, not that one. Wait, this is the area right here which speaks to ah, right. It says here monetary policy, right? Monetary policy is also constrained by a weakened central bank of Barbados balance sheet following the sovereign debt restructuring. So that just proved my point, right? That just proves the point that I just made. And there's the fact about it that the debt restructuring weakened the central banks of Barbados balance sheet by 1.7 billion dollars because the government just swiped off the money in the debt restructuring. It says here now at the very last line. It says here now at the very last line, right here, right here. It says right here The authorities intend to recapitalize the Central Bank of Barbados in line with the plan established in 2021. Look, it's right there. A plan established in 2021. But the second IMF program was signed in December 2022. Right? The second IMF program was signed in December 2022. But the government is saying, and the IMF, that they still need to recapitalize the Central Bank of Barbados' balance sheet by $1.6 billion as was established in 2021. And since then, we've signed another IMF program and we have not met that target. So you clearly see that there are discrepancies in the reporting where the IMF is saying in one breath that the government is meeting the targets, but when you read further in the report, here they are admitting that the government still need to do some of the things they promised before. So I hope you guys are following that. I hope you guys are paying attention to what is happening as it relates to the relationship with Barbados and the International Monetary Fund. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here with the central bank. We don't want that. That's too overarching for no. All right. So it's coming up to 8:30. We still got a long way to go, but we're going really good so far. Um, Enjoying this discussion with you as usual. Tyrone, Sam Marcia. Yes. But Joseph, you told me you want to get on to the program tonight, so I am going to send you the link. So look for the link that you could be able to sign on to the program, and then I'm going to let you in a minute. Right. Right. So as I was saying here, Barbados, a lot of these right here are promises, right? They call it growth initiatives, but they're just basically promises that the government intends to roll out throughout the next financial year, maybe 2 financial years, right? Right here, these are all of the promises that government has with the IMF. So it says here, promoting small-scale private sector investment in the green transition. It also says investing in education to better suit the labor market and reduce the skills mismatch. It also says here, enhancing finance for small and medium-sized businesses. Right? Revitalizing domestic capital markets, increasing efficiency to improve competitiveness, establishing Barbados as a southern hub for all aviation commercial activity to advance trade and facilitate increased direct investment, establish a food terminal in cooperation with Guyana and Suriname to address food security and reduce the regional food import bill, improve the value added to the tourism sector, and promoting the export of professional services. Also saying here they want advanced digitization, promote digitization, stemming from increased credit accessibility, increased efficiency and higher human capital. We're trying to push for the digitization of government services to be able to boost They're called efficiency in the public sector. And the government is saying that they want to create the conditions that promote investment and foster stronger and inclusive and sustainable growth as part of the bird. And they agreed to the importance of advancing digitalization and noted that the recommendations are in line with the objectives as detailed in the 2023 to 2026 Digital Government and National Cybersecurity Strategies. And they also showed keen interest in gaining more insights into fintech innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean and the potential impact that artificial intelligence innovations could have on jobs and productivity in Barbados. Right? So you're seeing the areas that the government want to push us, calling them growth areas, i.e., whatever, And you can see that digitalization is also one of them, along with the climate program or agenda. So I went through all of this stuff here about climate, but it keeps repeating itself over and over in this MF program. Again, building climate change resilience. So it gives you all of the information here, which speaks to the climate, what they intend to do. I'm going to try to cut it. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to try to summarize what they're saying here. So they're giving you how Barbados intends to build climate resilience. And it says here, improve public investment management and public sector efficiency could further lessen the growth debt trade-off for adaptation investment. So it says here, the execution of sizable public investment in adaptation will likely face challenges like other public investments, which typically carry large losses. Repaying the full benefits of the public adaptation project will require institutional reforms and capacity building to enhance the quality and efficiency of public investment and reduce leakage. Again, it comes back about natural disasters and public debt will be on a more favorable. And it says that the increase in public debt could be further contained if the initial adaptation investment scale is financed by tapping into the wider fiscal space resulting from public sector reform. So that's the same thing again in different language, but it all comes back to putting state-owned enterprises on the chopping block. The same thing. So don't mind the climate this and the resilient that and adaptation this and that. All of that's fancy language for cutting government financing of state-owned enterprises, and we're trying to find a way for them to make their own money and survive off government books. All right. Again, comprehensive the disaster risk management policy. Claim it. So the entire IMF program and the major point of the presentation is that this IMF program is heavily influenced by climate change. Right? So now we are up to our favorite part of the discussion. Right? Now we are to our favorite part of the discussion, which speaks to the Barbados South Coast Sewage Treatment Plant. And I zoom it in closer so that you can see right here, box 7. So it says here, in June 2023, in the context of the Summit for a New Global Financing Pact held in Paris, the authorities announced a package of initiatives to support their climate agenda, supported by the IMF, the IDB, the World Bank Group, and the Development Bank of Latin America, and CAF and the Caribbean, the European Investment Bank, the Green Climate Fund, In turn, in November, the European Commission announced the European Union's intention to support the upgrading of Barbados' climate resilient infrastructure for clean water. And y'all know how passionate I get about this water thing, right? So they want to help us, quote unquote, with our infrastructure for clean water, which you're saying is supposed to be in line with the global gateway investment agenda presented at the European Union and the EU CELAC summit in July. And this would be achieved through a debt climate swap to provide for the upgrade of the Barbados South Coast sewage treatment plant. And it says see below. So we will see below and see what they have in store for us as it relates to investment in our climate resilient infrastructure for clean water. Right? So this proves to you what I've been saying about the Joby Water business was all in agreement with the IMF Resilience and Sustainability Fund financed by the international world to clean sewage water, and the Water Reuse Act is there. So they're cleaning toilet water and water extracted from sewage plants. They're cleaning that water and putting it back in our clean water aquifers to bring back up water levels. That is what we're doing. So next in line here, they're saying, we're not going to go through this part, but it says outgoing initiatives to mobilize climate financing. Right? So what the government of Barbados is doing is attempting to mobilize this climate money in our country because money has been drying up all other places, as I started and I said that earlier in the discussion. So it says that the creation of a blue-green bank. Well, I do have to go through it, sorry. It says the ongoing initiatives to mobilize this climate money. The government of Barbados announced a capital contribution of $10 million created by the fiscal space generated by the IMF Resilience and Sustainability Fund. US aid committed to making a capital contribution of US $5 million. And in July, the Green Climate Fund Board approved a capital contribution of US $50 million, and the authorities intend to attract other partners to build a total capital of US $50 million, which would allow to support climate investment projects for about 5 times the capital amount, or about US $250 million. And in the initial stage, this blue-green bank that is supposed to be established in Barbados is expected to support primary resilient housing and projects. Right. I might have missed it, but I did an analysis on the Marseille show, which spoke to Barbados and this climate thing already, and this blue-green bank. I spoke about this blue-green bank at length, but I have to do it again on this platform so that we get deeper into this stuff. So you're saying here a blue-green bank in Barbados with capital of US 250 million or 500 million Barbados dollars to support housing. It goes on to say here now that they're going to get additional support from development finance from other institutions, including the US 18 million grant from the EU to support climate resilient water, sanitation, and clean ocean projects. So we don't know if the seaweed can be included in there. And another US $1.5 million in grants from the Green Climate Fund per project for the end of year preparations, innovation, and transformational impact, and to prepare investment proposals for furthering the Green Climate Fund. Right? So then it goes on to say here that the intention is to explore new debt neutral investments. So it says that the blue bond and issue of blue bond, and it will generate savings of 50 million. And the authorities are exploring the possible debt for claimant swap to fund the upgrade of the Barbados South Coast sewage treatment plant. The project, which should be supported by the IDB and the EU through the European Investment Bank, would improve wastewater systems, protect the environment, support the tourism sector, and reduce water shortages. And the debt swap would involve the issuance of sustainability-linked bonds or loan, which should be backed by a guarantee from the European Investment Bank and the IDB, right? So that is what we are saying. So I am just highlighting to you people that most of the monies that is going to be spent in Barbados is going to be spent under the auspices of climate change, water management, water works, and hence the reason that the Prime Minister of the country took over the Barbados Water Authority, because the Barbados Water Authority is the entity that is going to be as the tool to transition, used as the tool to transition the climate monies into the Barbados economy. Right? So I hope you grasp the changing dynamic of our politics. Right? So it is saying here now, trying to scroll down to get yeah, trying to scroll up to get the facts here, some more facts for you. Yes. So basically, what you get the gist of what I've discussed so far. Most of the monies in the Barbados economy is going to be spent. This report is a tad bit difficult to read. You just look at it; it's hardly any numbers and more percentages. So they set difficult for the average person not to understand it. Right? It's set for you not to grasp. Ah, hey. Uh, Give me 1 second. I'm having a Yes, can you guys hear me well? Just let me know if you can hear me well. Having a slight technical. Right. So if you can hear me well, just let me know so I can continue where I left off. Yeah. Well, we do have climate ambassadors around Barbados, and the job of these climate ambassadors is to climatize the young children and the population on the climate agenda. Because, as I've shown you, the authorities, government, has lined up billions of investment dollars to come in the country to be spent specifically on the climate agenda. Eh, And the first part of that climate agenda, as you can see, is to upgrade Barbados to tertiary level sewage treatment plant. Yes. So I want to show you eh, what you can see here is just some of the special drawing rights, which are some of the approvals for the IMF in terms of payments. But these are only the special drawing rights. These are not. These are not the disbursements, the total disbursements. So we only got $145 million worth of special drawing rights, as we can see here. And these are the dates that this money is going to be paid into the Barbados economy. So every time you complete one of these reviews, these IMF reviews, the government benefits from approximately $14 million at different dates, respective dates. They benefit from this monies. Right. So I'm coming down. There we have it. So what we have here now is some of the structural benchmark. What we agree to then. We ain't gonna get too fancy. What we agree to under the extended fund facility with the IMF. Right? What we agreed to. So everything that we've done as a government, I agreed to with the IMF. This table here, right? This table here will show you, and the government will say we met it, we didn't meet, we did. So you can see here that the government has their new agenda set up. Right? So they say that they're gonna in the first IMF program, if you all remember the legislation that was brought to Parliament, which dealt with the tax exemptions and duties or whatever, those recommendations were put in place by the IMF. Look at this right here. Government to adopt a new legislative and regulatory provision to strengthen and modernize procedures for granting and managing all duty and tax exemptions consistent with the recommendations outlined in the recent IMF technical assistance. Right? So you see, and they said that they met the target. Meanwhile, the legislation was only passed only passed over recent. So look right here. Public sector reform. Government to table a revised public pension law to enhance the sustainability of the public sector pension system. The date, the end of March 2023, this was supposed to occur under the first IMF extended fund facility review. You clearly see target, not met. Right here, look, not met. Not met. So you can clearly see that the pension reform was agreed with IMF, and it says not met, implemented with delay. Yeah. Here are some of the new plans they have for the upcoming year. To submit all outstanding financial statements for audit to the Auditor General by the end of 2024. National insurance statements. Right. So you can see some of the new plans here. They plan, I don't want to go through those yet. We can look at those later. Right. So you can see some of the policies they claim they met. So by the end of March 2024, the government was to establish a central online platform for government services and develop a digital platform to improve monitoring and execution of the public sector investment program. Well, March 2024 gone, we know that happened. Right. So it says here, government to adopt a set of measures consisting of government to approve Planning and Development Act to improve climate resilience of roads through improved drainage and other intervention. Our government to table in Parliament the water reuse bill. Now, this is the same water reuse bill that me and Castle Franklin raised, we spoke to the Jobby water, brown water, black water, grey water, the different grades of water, and how they intend to use these water catchments to clean them and tertiary level them through the plant or whatever and put it back into our aquifers for us to drink. Right? So they're going to incorporate the new water reuse policy and for government to fully operationalize the National Environment and Conservation Trust. Well, and they said they made that, which is true. Because they did pass the Water Reuse Act silently. And it is saying here that the government met the target of incorporating the new water reuse policy, which means that they've already gone ahead and using the water reuse policy without informing the nation. Look, it's right here, look. Incorporating the new water reuse policy. End of March 2023. First IMF program. Target met. How is this possible? Hey. Again, just look here, more thing about climate change and yeah. Moving past that, there's something specifically that I am looking for. Right. So these here are the plans that the government has for 2024, 2025. And you heard Senator Tricia Watson speaking about energy on the Marseillais program. And it says that there was cabinet approval, or there is to be cabinet approval for energy efficiency and conservation policy. And by the end of September 2024, there is supposed to be a new electricity supply bill to enhance competition in the electricity market and to introduce local participation in renewable energy investment. So you heard the Prime Minister in the budget speaking about electricity and the fact that she wants a decision to be made quickly as it relates to light and power and their processes. But you can see why. Because Barbados agreed with the International Monetary Fund through the Resilience and Sustainability Fund and the Climate Agenda to introduce a new electricity supply bill to the political economy of Barbados, which could see the increasing of electricity bills to general consumers. Look at this right here. I'm zooming it in so that we could all see clearly. Government to table new electricity supply bill. Enhance competition in electricity market. End of September 2024. Look at this right here, people. So mark down that date. September 4th, so not so first, September 2024. Right? So that is what we're facing. Even the central bank is heading into the climate change assessment business as well. Okay. So right here, what you're seeing in front of me is a risk assessment. It shows the risk to it shows the risk associated with the Barbados economy and how events outside of us can potentially slow down Barbados to the point where Barbados has to go through another round of IMF austere measures. So this assessment that you can see in front of me is a risk assessment. So it speaks about the risks that are associated with the IMF program, things that could impact it, things that could slow it down again, and even further. And this specific section right here, zooming in, speaks to the risk. Right? So it gives an assessment of it. Right? So you can see likelihood and you can see impact. So you can see that when it's asked you about an abrupt global slowdown or a recession, that factors combined will cause a sharp growth downturn with recessions in some countries and advanced spillovers through trade and financial channels and market fragmentation. Medium, high risk. And it says here, implementation to the structural measures to improve competitiveness of the tourism sector, diversified tourist source countries beyond. So we're going to get some tourists from outside of the UK, US, and Canada, those places, and to diversify the economy to reduce dependence on the tourism sector and steadily execute climate resilient investment. So climate change is what's supposed to be making us the new wave of foreign exchange and not tourism. Not my words. Again, not my words, but here is it right here. Improve structural measures or implement, structural measures to improve competitiveness of the tourism sector, diversify tourist source countries beyond the UK, Canada, US. We gotta get some Mexicans, and I guess that's where the government tried to get the Cayman flight, but that didn't work out. Right? But to diversify the economy to reduce the dependence on the tourism sector, which I agree with. We need to move away from tourism to earn foreign exchange in other places. But what the government is saying now, and the IMF, is that they should steadily execute climate resilient investment to support local demand. Right? So the new wave of foreign exchange is happening through climate in Barbados based off the policy decisions of the government. Right? So then it goes on to speak about what's happening in the US, and it said, amid tight labor markets or commodity price shocks, inflation remains elevated or high, prompting the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer and resulting in more abrupt financial, housing, and commercial real estate market correction and hard landing. Which means that your body ain't gonna lend any money, your house crashing, everybody selling out the houses and moving out, investors and buying up properties, hotels and building. That's basically what that is saying in the US. And if that is happening in the US, it will trickle down to Barbados. Impact, high. Right? So the chances of this occurring are very high. In Europe, it says intensifying fallout from the war in Ukraine, recurrent energy crisis and supply disruptions and monetary tightening exacerbate economic downturns and housing and commercial real estate corrections. So the same thing that is happening in the US, happening in Europe. And if Putin and Zelensky and the guys continue to be at war, and Iran and those people, Europe will have further challenges, slow down in Europe's economic market. The chances of that occurring, IMF
very high. China, let's speak specifically to China, and it says sharper than expected slowdown in the property sector, unexpected fiscal tightening due to local government financing stress, and declining investment, are rising geopolitical tensions disrupt economic. So if China decides to invade Taiwan, and if China, whatever happened in China that may disrupt, it will slow down what is happening, because Barbados is a big trading partner with China now. So I just want to show you that one more time before we move on. The likelihood of these things happening are medium, but the impact is very high, right? So these things have a high propensity to impact on Barbados' fortunes, and they got nothing to do with me, right? So these things are the IMF program and the birth plan. The survival of it for Barbados is completely out of Barbadian hands, right? It is out of Barbadian hands. So the future of our country is dependent on the success of Europe, the US, is dependent on the success of Europe, is dependent on the success of China. Right? Because we are a small open economy and we import. So the survival of Barbados is not dependent on what happens in Barbados alone, but what happens in those countries, because when the tourists, for God forgive, another pandemic hit and the tourists that come, Barbados is doomed. And here is the IMF saying to you in not just black and white, but red and that look like yellow. It is right here, people. It is right here, people. So I'm going to scroll past this now. Okay. So the IMF and Barbados in their matrix, they're coming on to 9 o'clock now. So the IMF and Barbados give some issues that are specifically akin to the Barbadian landscape, right? Specifically akin to the Barbadian landscape. So they're saying that country-specific risk, which is Barbados, what is, what's unique about Barbados, not in a good way, by the way. It says the declaration of reform momentum. So it says that the delays in fiscal reforms generate market concerns about the fiscal sustainability and undermine private sector confidence necessary for investment. So they're saying that the delays in reforming the conditions, the reforming how Barbados works, stopping up corruption, speeding up the process, reducing the paper outlook, improving permission times for property and town and country planning approvals. They're saying that these processes and the delays in trying to fix them from the government, the risk is very high. So that means it's not being done, right? So it's not being facilitated to an acceptable level. And the advice here is to adhere or stick to the fiscal consolidation strategy, which is cut state oil enterprises, increase taxes, reduce government expenditure under the IMF program to increase or generate higher primary surpluses on a sustained basis. So as you know, to get a primary surplus, the revenue, which is government revenue minus government expenditure, so to get increased revenues, taxation, cuts in the enterprises to increase savings, or direct investment. But we've been getting higher primary surpluses, higher government revenues through increased taxation, right? So that is what is the recommendation from them. Stick to that plan and you'll be all right. So it is saying here that we lost a loss of tourism competitiveness, right? So it says failure to maintain the upgrading of the tourism assets and infrastructure leads to a loss of attractiveness as a tourist destination and a decline in tourism revenue and foreign exchange earnings. So the likelihood of this occurring is medium and the impact of it is very high. But I think they understand it because Barbados, and you the viewers could tell me, if Barbados is looking more attractive in terms of infrastructure. Is the place looking clean? Do they have a clean Bridgetown? Do they have proper bathroom facilities? Do they have new tourist destinations? Are we improving the facilities for the tourists? Are we investing in Concept Bay? Are we investing in Oystins Fish Market? Are we developing the Oystins Festival, Hotel festivals? What are we doing to bring people to Barbados that is not the same old experience? Because the tourists complain daily that there's nothing to do in Barbados. Baxter's Road, dead. Oystins, yeah, Oystins still has a little something. St. Lawrence Gap, dead. Bridgetown at night, dead. So not even the tourists. The government is investing in the infrastructure to encourage tourists coming back and, having new and innovative things. Barbados is looking, let me say the roads look nice, no, or some of them, a lot of them, to the thing. But the infrastructure of Barbados is not looking pleasant on the eye, especially Bridgetown. And here is the IMF in the report speaking to a loss of competitiveness because a failure to maintain the upgrading of our tourism assets and infrastructure. But Pedro, to me, Barbados needs a good scrub. There's a lot of buildings that could be pushed down. There's a lot of buildings that could be painted, repaired. There's a lot of eyesores around the place. There's some plants and trees that could be planted around the island. Now, let me just say that I am not a fan of planting foreign trees that don't bear fruit. So instead of planting all of these trees just because you want to plant a tree for World Tree Day, I think that you should be planting fruit trees at every corner you get, every chance you get. Right? That is my opinion. You could do some plants. You could have some attractive looking plants, in Bridgetown. Well, Hutton is pretty hot, so you need some greenery around Bridgetown. So that's where I agree with it. That's where I agree here. That there should be some greenery around Bridgetown. The lighting up the place is too hot. Right? A concrete city. So we need some investment surrounding the infrastructure of Bridgetown. Because so much can be done with the infrastructure that we have around the place, but there's a lack of investment to upgrade Barbados. Barbados has looked the same way from time I knew myself, and it probably looked the same way since the days of Aaron Barrow and Grantley Adams and the like. But moving on. They said in recommendation that you should implement the structural measures to increase competitiveness in tourism and boost private sector investment into the tourism sector. I would disagree with that. I say that you need to boost investment in locals because when COVID hit, it was the locals that the hotels had to depend on for survival because the locals spent their monies to do day passes and spend time in the hotels because the price was reduced that locals could afford. Right? And I never went to New York and on the TV when I watch it, right? On the TV when they watch it, a lot of the motels and all these things are filled with locals, people who drive all around the states and stay in hotels and right. So can't afford locals can't afford to shop and to buy hotel related tourism services in other parts of the world. So locals should be included in the planning to increase investment in tourism, because during COVID, it was the locals who kept the hotels floating, right? So I think we need to relook that. It says here, Barbados is vulnerable to extreme climate events. An extreme climate event to cause damage to infrastructure and loss of human lives and livelihoods. So hurricanes, flooding, high winds, anything climate related, tsunami. And here is it again saying accelerate investment into climate resilient infrastructure that can mitigate disaster risk and continue seeking financial arrangement to safeguard for natural disaster shocks, i.e., hurricane clauses in government debt and insurance. So that is what they were saying to us. That is what those were the only things that they had concerns about, specifically relating to Barbados. Right? So this part speaks about that, but I don't want to get into that part. So I'm just gonna scroll past here. That coverage, that closure. Right, we're coming on the final stretch now, people. You know, we usually shut off at 9:30 and we are going to stay disciplined. So we are winding down in the last, almost in the last for long. Coming around the back stretch. All of this is stuff that is a little too above today's convo. Boom. No, you guys know that I'm an anti-corruption advocate, right? You guys know that I am an anti-corruption advocate, and Barbados is taking its stance towards anti-corruption. So in the IMF documentation and the reporting on Barbados, when it comes to the anti-corruption section, they're saying here that the incidence of bribery is perceived to be well below worldwide and regional averages. And according to Transparency International's 2022 Corruption Perception Index, Barbados, perceived in corruption, Barbados was the lowest in the Caribbean and lowest in Latin America and the Caribbean, with Barbados ranking in place 29 among 180 countries on the Anti-Corruption Perception Index. Bribery. Well, since a couple of events happened in Barbados, I think they may go revisit that, because this is 7,500 reasons all wrong. Right here. But it says here that notwithstanding, the authorities have taken action to further strengthen the anti-corruption framework in recent years. These include the approval of a Prevention of Corruption Act to provide for the prevention, investigation, and prosecution of acts of corruption, which applies to persons in both the public and private sectors. October 2021. The approval of a Deferred Prosecutions Act to empower the Director of Public Prosecutions to meet with and construct agreements concerning criminal liability. 2021. The approval of the Whistleblower Protection Bill, which was passed in December 2021, so they say, giving legal effect to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, as well as the Inter-American Convention Against Corruption. And they're saying here that we're passing in August 23 the approval of the Integrity in Public Life Bill. And those are all right there for us to see. Right? So you guys can tell me if, based off recent actions, if the government of Barbados, and according to the IMF reporting, has been tackling the problem of corruption in Barbados and taking it serious as it relates to the conduct of public officials and government ministers. You can tell me, right? You can tell me. Ah, right. So this section now, because we went it down, I want to deal with contracts, and then we're going to end off on the contracts and do a quick wrap-up summary. So we're going to deal with the management of the public purse and management of government finances. Right? You guys reading your guys' comments, you're making me laugh. But it says here, the authorities made significant strides to enhance the public financial management in recent years, with the IMF technical support, of course. They make sure they tell you it. And the implementation of a procedural fiscal rule. I don't want to get too. Right. So I spoke on other platforms about changes in the budget process. And it says here, that part of the new public finance management, strengthening the strategic phase of the budget formulation process through an annual update of government fiscal strategy and setting of multi-year expenditure ceilings in accordance with the updated strategy. Upgrading the budget document to provide more policy-oriented information to decision makers and enable more transparent budget execution. Establish a monitoring process to enhance fiscal risk management, for example, through annual and quarterly reports by ministries, government agencies, and state-owned enterprises. The creation of sub-programs to track COVID-19 related expenditures in the budget and presenting to Parliament contracts awarded over Barbados $1 million or more. You heard that, right? You heard that. Now the government said that they create. Now I went out to Kaipo. I told this story many times. I personally went out to Kaipo and asked for the information related to this register of public contracts over $1 million to understand what was happening with COVID, and it was not there. But still, they are reporting to the IMF that they did it. And the IMF was reporting that they did it when they didn't do it. So I can verify for you, viewers, that issue of the public contract register at Kaipo, they didn't do it. But still, they have that they did it, and the IMF is reporting that they did it. But I went and they didn't do it. So you can see the discrepancies and the information being reported to the public surrounding the true state of the political economy of Barbados. Right? So included in the budget that just passed should have been, according to the IMF, information on the risks related to state pensions and investment risk. So I need to probably read the budget again and see if I see that. right? It says speaks to procurement, which is on the public financial management again, right? That a new procurement act was approved in December 2021. And the authorities seek to strengthen the fairness, integrity, and transparency of the procurement process. And the authorities are committed to implementation of enhanced public procurement practices, including a sustainable green. uh, So it says here that the Procurement Act provides or sets provision for increased transparency and enhanced government. And it charges the chief procurement officer. It also requires the publication of all procurement contracts awarded in the year, as well as reports on the supplier performance. And the authorities have also implemented an e-procurement system with the IDB to reduce the cost and processing of procurement. Again, I will ask any Barbadian if they were ever given a copy of any public procurement contract in Barbados, that they can go and pull down right now a list of all public procurement contracts in the country. I'm waiting on it, right? I'm waiting on it. I can't see it. None of my colleagues have it, right? So it says here, right? Right, right. Our Barbados, Esther, they're speaking about our Barbados, right? So I'm looking for this one last thing because we're at 9:17 and we're going to start to wrap up any minute, no. Right, so this part is about digitization. I'm looking for one last part with one last section, and this section should be reading realistically about the fact that Barbados agreed with the International Monetary Fund to establish the office of a contractor general. Right? Barbados agreed to establish the office of a contractor general to be able to monitor any and all contracts coming through the government of Barbados and as it relates to the funding of the IMF program and all IMF related loans and the investment coming out to these loans were intended to go through the office of a contractor general. And that was agreed to in the first IMF program. But it was never announced publicly and the office was never established, or there was never any effort to establish it, but still it was reported in this same document. Uh Trying to find it. Yeah. Right. Yes. So I think I am going to right. Yes, people. So that is basically where we're at with the IMF. Um yeah, so that's basically where we're at. So let me rectify what.
Yes, people. So that's basically where we are at with the Barbados IMF relationship. There's much more that we can say, but I purposely uh, summarized the presentation for the time that we had and just to keep it basic. because we don't want to get too technical. So we just wanted to touch on areas. We wanted to touch on areas that were familiar with you, that the government usually speaks about, and to give you a deep understanding of uh, what is going on. So I'm hoping you grasp a lot of the information. I know it was a lot of information. We put in a lot of work tonight. So I want to say how proud I am of everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the 359 persons that are on. I'm hoping, because I don't just want to come on here every week and just talk, talk. I want to come on and be giving to get back. So your feedback is essential to ensure that Alternate Views as a brand, Alternate Views as a show continues to grow in the hearts of the audience. So let's liking Alternate Views, sharing Alternate Views. It's very important to the information getting out there. So if you see the information as valuable, give me a thumbs up. You know, give me clapping hands, uh, anything at all, and share the live to people who would be interested in knowing exactly what is happening with Barbados, what is happening with our relationship with the International Monetary Fund, what is happening with the Sustainability Trust, what is happening with the implementation of Barbados and the climate agenda, what is happening as it relates to the tackling of Barbados' water issue through the IMF program, um, upgrading the sewer system through the Barbados Water Authority, and channeling climate financing through an entity like the Barbados Water Authority, which has not produced financial statements for umpteen years. We have a very little accountability with the garbage and sewage tax, and we know that the Barbados Water Authority has been an entity which has come under severe scrutiny in the way how it has handled government allocations and the way how funding was dispersed through it. So it's a very interesting observation that the prime minister would have taken over, that it would have taken over the water authority, and you clearly would have gotten an understanding why water authority was taken over, because through the IMF program, uh, water and climate and environment is the largest receiver of climate financing, and climate financing is set to be the new wave of foreign direct not invest direct, but foreign investment or foreign income into Barbados, because suggestions are coming forward in this very report that we need to move away from tourism and focus more on the implementation of the climate agenda as a way forward to earning foreign exchange. So if you agree with those type of ideologies, and if you agree that the IMF program is the way forward for Barbados as structured, right? And if you agree that Barbados as a way to saving this country needs to fully implement the climate agenda and fully go after climate financing as a way to earn foreign exchange and try to tackle the debt through reducing fuel costs, and Barbados getting into renewable energy. We see it. We hear the rhetoric from government officials. We see it from the private sector. We see the private sector buying into government's climate agenda as well, because climate financing, and I think that I'm going to specifically uh, discuss climate financing at another stage, right? So I hope that I was able to illuminate your minds, surrounding what is happening with the IMF, surrounding what is happening with Barbados. And I know persons from the International Monetary Fund watch the program because I do have some colleagues from university um, who would have, you know, signed on. So I want to basically wind up by engaging you here in some of the comments. Um, ask you how you feel about it. How do you feel about our chances of survival as a nation? How do you feel about our relationship with the IMF? Do you like it? Do you think it is the best scenario for us right now? Would you rather us out of an IMF program? Would you rather us in the safety of an IMF program? Um, do you think we need to continue borrowing on the markets? Do you think we need to borrow from the IDB and the IMF and the European Investment Bank? Do you think our best chances as a country for the survival of it is borrowing from those institutions? Um, so we got a lot to think about tonight, and I purposely led the conversation along these lines because I'm sure that most of the information that I put out tonight, you probably heard a little scratch from the government, but there was no substantial information process that you could have understood what Barbados is getting into, right? That you could have understood that the new IMF program that the officials are speaking about, and that the officials keep saying, "We're meeting the targets, we're meeting the targets, we're meeting the targets." I don't know if I lost sight, or I don't know if you guys are losing sight as well, but I clearly saw, I clearly saw, I clearly saw line items saying targets not met, targets not met. I know you guys saw it as well. So I explained to us, Barbadians, why the government or the authorities, as they like to say it, are saying that the targets were met. And then the IMF is reporting that some of the targets were met. But then when we read the report, we're clearly seeing targets not met. Right? Targets not met. And the evidence was on the screen for all and sundry to follow in the discussion. To see that there has been a lapse of transparent information. So it comes across to us, the public, that the IMF as an institution is trusting the government of Barbados and the information coming from the government of Barbados and reporting directly what the authorities say, and not necessarily doing their own due diligence to ensure that the government's morning words match the next words. I would leave it like that for now. So I'll say this to all of the observers. Stewart and Perkins Caribbean, that is my consulting firm, right? I do economic consulting, economic analysis. So much that we see here every Thursday. this is my living. So I attempted in my official capacity to engage the IMF. I wrote the IMF, the headquarters, and I was told that the IMF will not speak unless the government of Barbados approves a conversation between me and the IMF. I sent emails to the local IMF office, which is housed at the Central Bank of Barbados, and they're saying that only email addresses added to a list can contact this email, and if you wish to engage the IMF, you have to go through the government of Barbados. So I'm saying that I tried to have direct conversation with the IMF. I've tried to be in contact with the IMF. I've sent the IMF notifications about alternate views and alternate views as about having extensive research available on the Barbados economy. The only piece of research available on the Barbados economy between 2018 to 2021, but they are saying to me that you can only have that conversation through the government. Now I will say this and then I will wrap up. I, Kimar Stewart, met was standing in St. John Parish Churchyard. While I was standing in St. John Parish Churchyard, I had a conversation with Dr. Clay Maskell. I've had a conversation, well, I didn't speak to her, but she was there, which is the Prime Minister of Barbados. And then the director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, when they were touring the St. John Church, when the International Monetary Fund was here and the managing director was here in Barbados, I personally donated 3 copies of the book Alternate Views. Trying to find it here. I personally donated 3 copies of Alternate Views. One to Dr. Clay Maskell, one to the Prime Minister of Barbados, Motley, and one to the IMF Director, Kristalina Georgieva. I donated all 3 of them. Well, I gave Dr. Maskell his in his hand directly, and I donated the other 2 because they said I couldn't give it to her straightly. So the Prime Minister's press secretary took Alternate Views, and I autographed Alternate Views with the name of the IMF director as a donation to her so that she could have read the commentary on the Barbados economy from an objective perspective. So we will leave it in the Lord's hands as it relates to Kimar Stewart and Stewart and Perkins Caribbean uh, engaging in further conversation surrounding Barbados and the IMF. As we could clearly see that the facts that we've put forward today, there needs to be a discussion between the IMF, Stewart and Perkins Caribbean, because Barbados is at stake here. And my mission and my goal on this program, Alternate Views, is to ensure the longevity and the survival of Barbados and Barbadians for future generations to come. So, my people, we've come to the end of another brilliant show. We are at 9:35, so I want to thank you all for tuning in. And welcome all of your comments. Square 4, good night to you, Gail Biz, Patrina Dritz, Peter King, Sean Cool, Esther Blue, Anderson Nurse, Pedro Gemma, Marcia, Lemuel, Ocean Stalker, Pedro Gemma, Pedro Holder, Zaire, thank you guys, NG, Ramel King, Travis Stewart, Marie Watson, Carson Cadogan, Maxine, Marie Watson. Good night to Marcia Weeks. By the way, tune into the Marcia Weeks program tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't forget the Marcia Weeks show, 7 p.m. tomorrow night. So good night to Marcia. Good night to Caswell Franklin, Dave Reitz, Pastor Ferdinand, Maxine McLean. Good night to Rose Carbon. Good night to Heather Cole and all of the other hosts on the Marcia Weeks program. Good night to you from Alternate Views. Um, my best wishes to Traverse City and to Oswald Newton. Yeah, again, good night to Miss Annette Wood. Thank you for tuning on earlier. Sir Alfred Benjamin, Tennyson Drix. Uh, thank you to you all for tuning in. We are now at the end of Alternate Views. So, my people, next week, very interesting show yet, as always. So, look forward for the ad to be put on the YouTube as soon as possible, and then we will move from there. So thank you very much, guys. My glasses are up and down, and they try to get them fixed, but they're not working. But thank you very much, guys. It was lovely seeing you. I will see you next week. Goodbye.